They say when you reach my age, your memories soften like old linen. But not all of them. Some memories decay like corpses in shallow graves, half rotten, always seeping. The worst ones rot from the inside out, pressing against your ribs in the quiet hours before dawn. Let me tell you about the winter of 1940. I was 60 years old, superior of the Notre Dame congregation in Timisoara. Outside our walls, the world was unraveling. Soldiers, rations, disappearances whispered from mouth to mouth. But what we saw, what I survived, was not war. It was something much older, more deliberate. It didn't come with tanks or bombs. No flags waved in its name. It came with silence, an unnatural, syrupy hush that suffocated the living city. One cold morning, as the girls sang the prayer, the birds stopped mid-song. Their wings beat the air once, twice, then dropped like stones. The chapel bells rang flat, and the sky turned the sickly color of boiled bones. That was the day the Braunfeuer arrived. No one saw it, not fully. No eyes could pin its shape, for it shifted constantly, bleeding into alleys and seeping through keyholes like smoke from a cursed fire. It smelled of iron and wet fur, like something dredged up from the stomach of a drowned beast. And it was brown, a thick, unnatural brown, like dried blood and crumbling parchment. But what I remember most, what still wakes me screaming, is its smile. It always smiled. Braunfeuer was a terrifying dragon, ancient and ravenous. Its teeth were like rusted knives, and it feasted on baptized children, savoring the innocence in their flesh. Sometimes it would tear infants straight from their mothers' wombs, devouring them before their first breath. It didn't have to fight. People willingly obeyed. It would whisper promises, to some beauty, to others fortune. It was little Anne-Marie, just 6 years old, with flaxen braids and a voice like spring bells. She was the first to stop singing during Vespers, the first to cry at night without remembering why. I thought it was just a cold or homesickness. But she began drawing things, strange shapes in charcoal on the refectory walls. Circles over and over, always bleeding into a jagged mouth. That final night the snow fell sideways, though the wind was still. We found her footprints in the snow outside the cloister gates, barefoot despite the frost. They led to the orchard, to the base of the old pear tree, where the snow had turned the color of rust. I went alone, clutching my rosary, heart rattling like dice in a gambler's cup. At first I thought she was kneeling, praying, but her head was bent far too low, unnaturally low. And there, behind her, coiled in the shadows, was the Braunfeuer. It had no eyes that I could see, only a stretched, grinning mouth filled with hooked teeth, gnawing through her back, still humming softly as if to soothe her. The child never screamed. Her eyes looked at me, wide and still, even as the monster sucked marrow from her tiny spine. When it finished, it licked the blood from its gums and whispered, "She tasted like hens." And to men, oh, to men, it promised power. Men are so easily tempted by power. Braunfeuer told them they would be invincible if they sold their souls to it, that they would win the war, that they were a superior race, that they were chosen. And then, when they knelt to it, it swallowed their souls like communion wafers, one by one. His name was Mr. Schuler, and he was ambitious. Too ambitious for a man who taught grammar to boys and girls in pinafores. He was clever, confident, and loathed to take orders from a nun. I once overheard him muttering about taking his rightful place, as if authority were a coat he simply hadn't worn yet. When the man from Cluj came with promises and papers, he welcomed them, flattered them. The very next day he marched into my office and demanded I step aside. The ministry had appointed me headmaster, he said, grinning with teeth too perfect, too straight. Progress demands change. I did not argue. I only watched. That night, a noise came from his quarters. It wasn't a scream. It was too wet for that. More like something being pulled slowly from a narrow hole. I went, but I was too late. His body sat upright in his chair. Every window was sealed tight, yet his papers fluttered as if blown by a foul wind. His face had been peeled from the skull, draped neatly over his desk like a discarded mask. Beneath his skin, his eye sockets were empty. A long, forked tongue lolled from a mouth torn too wide. On the wall, written in his blood, were the words, "Power is a meal, and he was only the appetizer." The Braunfeuer cloaked itself in bureaucratic masks, officials in new suits, men from Bucharest or Berlin, smiling with teeth too wide. "We only wish to modernize the confessional system," they said. "You'll still teach, you'll still serve God, but under our protection." And some nuns, God forgive them, believed it. They weren't many, no, just a few believed its lies. Sister Mathilda was the most devout among us. Humble, soft-spoken, never missed a sunrise rosary. She had a voice like melted wax, warm and slow, and she believed even the devil could be forgiven if he just wept hard enough. On the second Sunday of Lent, we found her kneeling in the chapel, lips moving silently. Her candle had burned out, but she hadn't moved. Her eyes were fixed upward, glassy, tears dried in long trails. I stepped closer, and I saw it. Behind her in the choir loft, something was moving. Not walking, slithering. The shadows curled downward like ink poured from heaven. The Braunfeuer descended behind her, its limbs coiled like a centipede's, its mouth opening not horizontally, but vertically, splitting its head in two, and it watched her. Sister Mathilda never flinched. She whispered louder, gripping her crucifix. Then it struck. With a hiss like steam through meat, it wrapped its tendrils around her arms and pulled. Not fast, slowly, lovingly, as if savoring each tendon's snap. The sound was like unzipping wet cloth. Her arms came free at the shoulders, and her blood sprayed over the marble, painting the Virgin's feet red. But Mathilda still prayed, even as her lungs gurgled, even as she collapsed in a pool of herself. She never cursed it, never screamed. Later we found this carved into the chapel's wall in deep gouges. "Faith without fear is the sweetest flesh." But I saw it. I saw the truth. I had seen evil before. During the Great War, I held the hand of a boy whose face had been blown away by a mortar, his jaw gone, his eyes wide with pain, trying to say a prayer he no longer had lips for. I had carried a young nun, just 17, who had been assaulted by retreating soldiers, her habit torn, her faith shattered, her silence louder than any scream. And once I stood ankle-deep in a trench filled with water and corpses, helping a dying soldier use the last of his strength to write a letter to a mother who would never recognize what was left of him. But all of that was pain. That was war. Braunfeuer was something else. It didn't burst through doors with boots and bullets. It knocked gently and asked to be invited in. And the people, oh, the people opened wide. Because humans, no matter how small, crave power. More than peace, more than love. They want to be adored, feared. It's trauma, passed down like bad blood. To break the cycle, you must be strong, not with fists, but in spirit, and that's what Braunfeuer fed on, those without inner strength. The signs came slowly, like rot under floorboards. First, the children stopped crossing themselves. Then the morning masses thinned. Those who attended vanished. Sisters began to stare, wide-eyed and silent, at empty corners of the convent, as if something was whispering behind the walls. The confessionals were sealed shut. Books, holy and historical alike, burned behind the chapel under moonless skies. Those who know me or knew me know I am no fragile woman. Physically strong, yes, but more than that, a soul forged in fire. I led a congregation of hundreds, all with fierce faith. I was a mountain among them, feared and respected, and I refused to kneel. Each night I took my crucifix and walked the halls. I spoke the saints' names into the shadows. I traced holy oil across the doors, though my hands trembled. And I listened. Oh, I listened. Outside the chapel it breathed, long wet exhalations that made the candles flicker. Then came the third Sunday of Advent. The girls lit the candles. Their sweet voices rose, but then the doors opened, untouched. Cold wind blasted through, though the trees outside stood still. From that unnatural gust came a voice, dragging like iron chains over wet gravel. Sister Alexandra, the time of superstition is over. A metallic stench hit me, fresh blood. I turned toward the door and saw it. Gleaming white fangs, the glint of brown-scaled flesh coiled behind the altar's door. I knew it. I had waited for it. It had come not for trickery this time, but to collect its tribute. But I am Sister Alexandra, superior of the greatest girls' school in the Banat region. I have seen mothers die in childbirth, and sisters hang for hiding Jews. There is no fear left in me. Not even for the Braunfeuer. I raised my crucifix, though its claws pierced my side. I felt its cold breath on my throat. And I said, "Then let the God of the meek rise with fire." I began to sing, half chant, half scream, and the girls, bless their brave hearts, joined me. Then the sisters. One by one, voices rose like a flame. Something inside the darkness twisted. The thing screamed, not in pain, but rage. It vanished, shrieking into the sky like smoke torn by wind. It wasn't destroyed, but it fled. It still watches, I feel it, somewhere beyond the Danube, waiting for new doors, new hearts to tempt. But we remained, our school endured. Our girls still learned to pray, still wrote in clean script. The women of my congregation, bloodied but unbroken, carried the light onward. Braunfeuer did not die that night. It lives on in those who let their souls rot, in young men who hate others simply because they are different, in those who believe in racial superiority. Braunfeuer is a dragon with brown scales and gleaming teeth who feasts on the weakest among us. And when it is full, it plays with their heads like a cat with yarn. Blood pools around it, thick and pungent with the stench of the dead. Braunfeuer is the worst thing I have ever known. Beware of it, I beg you, because it's still smiling. And somewhere, someone is about to open their door.